कोई बात नहीं। 30 हो गया, बोलना शुरू करो।
आप सभी को गुड आफ्टरनून। इस एफडीपी प्रोग्राम के थर्ड डे फर्स्ट सेशन में आप सभी का स्वागत है। हमारे रिसोर्स पर्सन हमारे साथ जुड़ चुके हैं। मैं आप सभी से उनका परिचय कराना चाहूँगी। आज के रिसोर्स पर्सन प्रोफेसर शिव प्रसाद जी। Presently, he is working as a head and dean faculty of management studies, Maharshi Dayanand Saraswati University, Ajmer. Apart from it, he is holding the charge of Dean, Faculty of Law and Faculty of Journalism and Mass Communication, Head, Department of Computer Science, Department of Law, Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, MDS University, Ajmer. Professor Prasad has worked as Professor Head and Dean, Faculty of Business Management, Executive Council, FC and ACM member of Indira Gandhi National Tribal University, MP. Dr. Prasad has more than a dozen scholastic and professional qualifications include CS, MBA, ICWA, FDP, PhD, MCOM, and so on. He is having more than 28 years teaching experience. Professor Prasad has received many awards like Management Teacher Award from All India Management Association, Best Research Paper Award, California School of Management and Leadership, Aligned University San Diego, Utkrish Shikshak Samman, MDS University Ajmer, UGC Research Award for Teachers, UGC New Delhi, Lifetime Achievement Award, Best to Edutrex, Best Researcher Award, IRS Jaipur. Sir completed one major and one minor research project of UGC New Delhi. He supervised for doctor degree 23 candidates and 6 are under process. He has written 50 research papers, 4 books, 5 chapters in edited books. He has participated and presented papers in more than 100 national and international conferences and seminars. He is the life member of Accounting Association, Indian Commerce Association, Inspira Research Association, PUCL, Yahi University, and he is the invited as a convener and member in various committees of state government and universities. मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगी कि इस एफडीपी प्रोग्राम के कन्वीनर भी हैं सर, और सर मैं इस ऑनलाइन मंच पर आपका स्वागत करती हूँ। वेलकम सर।
Very good afternoon. Am I audible?
यस सर।
But my share is not being shared. The research scholars are trying. Can you give me 2-3 minutes more so that they can make it presentable so that you may see my slides? Just 5 minutes, 2-3 minutes.
यस।
Slides are changing.
यस यस सर।
कहाँ से करना है? किससे करना है? ठीक ठीक ठीक, कोई दिक्कत होगी तो मैं फोन। Once again, good afternoon. It is very important topic that the sampling I am taking. In the sampling I am discussing with you, first thing is that the basic terminologies which is being used. Second, how to determine the sample size. And third one is the techniques which you have to adopt. Here, the first slide is important in terms of knowing the concept. That is, if we talk about the universe, meaning thereby it is aggregation of the all possible elements and which is unspecified to time and space. Whenever you are doing the research, it is very important that you should specify the time and space domain as well. Here in universe, you cannot do that. So we are not taking the universe. We are taking the target population. In that, if you see the definition, then the both the thing which is very essential for the purpose of the research, that is the time domain and the space domain, both are covered. Say, for example, if you have to conduct any research in Rajasthan or in India, that is to be specified in the target population, and the time for which you are doing the research, that is also included in this target population. So, target population is having the time domain as well as the space domain. We may call it sample population on which we are working. Here again, the very important term on which we will be discussing later on, it is basically the generalization about the population. I mean to say it is the representative of all the sampled population. I'm not saying the universe. We frequently use the word universe. Universe, as I said, that you cannot bound it in time or space domain. So it is not the sample cannot be the part of the universe, but it can be part of the sampled population which we have discussed earlier. Here, one important term we generally confuse ourselves, that is sample element. We must know the sample element, meaning thereby from whom we are going to collect the data, means the respondent. It is very, the respondent may be the managers, maybe the student, maybe the person who is buying the any product from the market, means that is the sample element. We confuse with the sampling unit. It is again very important. Element is broader term. It is included sampling unit, maybe 3 4 unit, and from there we can take the sample element. So that is sampling unit is broader than the sample unit. Sample unit is one of the respondent in the sample unit. The census again, it is basically investigation of all individuals element that make up a population. It is just for the information. So we have discussed here universe, census, and the sampled population. Here the important thing is that sampled population is there. From this sampled population, we take the sample. And in that sample we have sampling units, and in the sampling units we have the sample elements. Again, one important thing is that when we go through the literature review, then we have to specify from where we can collect the sample element. In that case, we have to make a frame. Frame, I mean to say, from where we can collect the data. That may be the directory, that may be the mailing list, that may be the telephone, that may be the email address, whatever it is. So this is sample frame. Now you can see conceptual model which I have given here. The aspects which is used, universe you are saying it is indefinite, no time bound, no space bound. But population, sampled population, again population is that from where you are collecting the data, and sampled population is that from where you can frame the sample frame, and in that sample frame maybe three sample unit or four sample unit, maybe two sample unit you are taking. Element is the respondent. Here again, after understanding the basic terminologies of the sampling, that is sample unit, sample element, sample populations, and the population in general, we come to the sampling, that is the process of drawing a number of individual cases from a larger population. As I said you earlier, it is a
इसका
way
मैं
to
नीचे चला
learn
गया था
about
उसमें
a
क्या
larger
थोड़ा सा आगे हो
population
गया
by
मुझे उसमें
obtaining
दिख रहा था
information from a subset of a larger population. What I want to convey
हाँ तो अभी
to
लंच
you
शुरू तो होने
in
दो
the
अभी
sampling
यही
is
कर
that
रहा
it should be representative of the sampled
शुरू तो
population.
होने दो फिर चलिए
Now, if I want to summarize something about the sampling, then I can say that it is not at all possible to go through each and every
हाँ सर
sample
इसको
element. In that case, what we do, we take the sample is very helpful in drawing the conclusion of a large group. Uh, I have given one example here. We decide whether a book is worth reading by randomly scanning paragraph here and there. So you just look in the book and you can understand that this book is worth reading, and then you start reading that book. We can say that almost all decisions, both business and personal, are based upon some type of sample. In business and management marketing research, we obtained similar manner by using the sample. Here, why to take the reasons of sampling? What is the reason that compelled us to take the sample? There are few reasons which I have cited here. One is that we have very limited time. We want to conduct the research, maybe in PhD research, maybe 3 year, 4 year, 5 year. So we have time constraints are there. In that case, it is very important that if we take the sample, then it would be easy to collect the data. Again,
कहाँ
the
पे
second point which we come
जैसे थे
across the reason for the sampling is that is the
तो
cost.
बारिश वारिश
You
का कुछ सुना
see,
था कि खूब
if you
बारिश हुई
take each and every element, the cost would be more. In that case, to be having cost effective, you
नीचे
should
क्या लगा मीटर
adopt the sampling. Accuracy, I do not say that the accuracy would be more, but accuracy to a great extent,
बटन का ना
it is reasonable. So that is the reason we
हाँ
take
वो
it.
तो दूसरी चैनल है इसमें
There are some sample
मैं पुरानी वाली थी
which
चैनल
is of having destroying nature. They are perishable.
हाँ वो तो
In
पता
that
था वो
case,
तो हमेशा ही रहता
sampling is very good. Otherwise, the cost would
लेकिन इतना
increase
ज़्यादा
if
हुआ
you
है कि
take
बड़े
each and every
कैजुअलिटी हुई है
sample, like photograph films, testing tubes, maybe like that. Now, another maybe sampling should fulfill certain
जैसे नया
managerial
स्टैब्लिश होगा
objectives.
नीचे वाला एरिया
These
बंद
are
होगा
these objectives are, that is the sample are the representative of its population. Therefore, the characteristics of the sample is involved in the whole
इसका चैनल चेंज
population,
चेंज हो
or
सकता
we may call
है
it,
ट्रेन कैंसिल होगी
not
लेकिन
call it
ट्रेन
universe, but maybe sometime the universe. The two thing very important in that sample.
सुनते हैं ना कि
Whenever
वहाँ
we
का एक
conduct,
चलने वाला जनरल
we
है
are
लेकिन वहाँ
choosing
पे
any
सब
sample.
हथेली पे ही
You
चलता
should
है कब
be,
क्या हो जाए
means
कुछ
the
नहीं पता चलता
sample should be reliable and it should be bias free. Bias free, I mean to say, means you should not take that sample which fulfills that you have to do the research according to that. So these are the two elements which is very important. Reliability is there, means if you take another sample from the same particular sampling unit or sample frame, then repetition would result the same. That is called as reliability. What I want to convey to you is that reliability and freedom from bias, it should be there. There are two managerial reasons for that we take it. That is, data that arrive too late for analysis for the problem have little value no matter how excellent the sampling is. So
That is the reason it should be reliable. Sometimes recently collected data are useful. Here complex sampling must be foregone. So these are the two managerial reasons. That's why we take the sampling. Here, I have used one more word, that is inference. Inference means the general view of the sampling that indicate. You can see the sampled population is there. I have categorized the sample element also and the sample from there. From that sample and element, we can generalize a particular situation that it is a good or it has certain results in the means you can find some conclusion out of that means you can get the inferences here. Again, one is whether the sample is representative. I have already said that if you see the one rice part and you can say that it is okay or not, that you can know. Similarly, in that this case also, it should be representative. Inferences, as inference means generalization, means if you can on the basis of the sample you can generalize if that this particular event is correct, this particular event is happening. Now I am coming on the sample size. As I said you, first I discussed the basic terms which is being used. The researcher must note that there is a difference between sample element and sample unit and sample frame, sample population. These four terms are very important in case of selecting a particular sample. If you do not know the sample element or sample population, that is time domain and the space domain, means you cannot go for good research. Therefore, first thing for the beginners is that they must understand the basic terminologies which I have discussed earlier. Now, sample size, generally people take the sample size by their own means method. It is not like that. There is certain scientific methods for having determining the sample size. Sample size basically means from the sampled population, how much sample you have to take in order to collect the right data. In that case, it is a part of the population chosen for a survey or experiment, and it is a subset of the population selected to make inferences. As I said you earlier about the population, sample size should not be too small, it should not be too large, it should be adequate, and it should be like that it should serve the purpose for which you are having the survey or conducting the research. Here I use one word, very popular word, in order to showing the adequacy of the sample size, that is optimum sample size. Optimum sample size, as I said you earlier, it should not be the large which can lead to good precision and less error and bias, but wastage of money, time and resources and not the cost effective. If sample size is too small, that will lead to inaccurate result and more bias will be there and not in congruence with the objectives. Therefore, it should be optimum, it should be sample must be optimum size, it should neither be excessively large nor be too small. What are the factors? Because you must know while determining the sample size, you must know what are the factors that would be affecting me to collect the sample. In order to decide the sample, determine the sample, what should be the actual sample size. In that, there are certain factors which I have narrated here. One is the nature of the population. First, you should see the nature of the population. If it is heterogeneous, then obvious it is. If you want to get the good conclusion, then there should be large sample size should be there. And if it is means the nature of the population is of homogeneous nature, then you can go for a small sample as well. Availability of the resources, the research should be, the research is good when you see the resources. You don't have the resources. Resources means the financial resources, maybe the manpower resources, whatever it is, means the resources should be, according to the resources, you should select the sample size. Here again, I am going to discuss later on in this slide part also, that is the sampling method, which sampling method would be appropriate. We generally, I have seen 500 to 600 PhD cases I have evaluated all over India. Even central universities are there in that category. What I found, generally the researcher, they use probabilistic and non-probabilistic sampling by their own choice. Probably always I find most of the thesis they used to write the word random sampling. Means whenever you do like that, you should see the definition of the particular sampling technique. Then you decide which sampling technique would be fit to your particular research. Next is degree of accuracy required. If more degree of accuracy required, then it is obvious you should go for larger sample. If time constant is there, then you can go for a small sample. Nature of the analysis, then again it is very important what you want to do, what you want to draw the conclusion. So in that case, according to the nature of the analysis, you may decide the sample size. There are certain approaches for calculating the sample size. One is arbitrary approach. It is generally we people, means most of the people, they do not know what I should do, how much sample size should I take in that particular approach. Here I have very categorically mentioned that if there is large number of population, sampled population, you may go for 5% of the total population, or maybe 10% of the is the ideal one. But here again, there are cases. In that case, the population is very large. In that case, we may not go for the probabilistic sampling. We may go for non-probabilistic sampling. In that case, there is a convenience sampling method. There you can, if it is very large sample, means very large sampled population, in that case you can take according to the convenience sampling. If it is very large, then 384 you can take it. It has been in the review of literature, many review of literature I have come across with that. The conventional approach is also in that this the average sample size is similar studies can be taken as a sample size. It is not necessary that you should calculate the sample. There are certain studies which you come through while doing the review of literature, that this much of the sample size will be accurate to this particular researchers have taken, so that you can take that much of sample size, no problem at all. Means you should justify that these are the researches which that particular person has done, and they have taken this much of sample size for this particular problem, maybe the in the separate space domain, so that would be also justified. Here again, if I say the another method is statistical analysis requirement approach, means here the statistical requirement basis, that is we can adopt the formula, however time is very less, so I am skipping some slide. So here you can statistical analysis requirement approach, you can adopt the this particular formula, that is Cron's formula developed by William G. Cron's, z square within bracket pq upon E square. That is Z is the standard error, generally 1.96 we generally consider, but it may be, if 95% is there, it may be 2.56. It depends Z, that you can calculate from the Z table on the basis of the confidence level. And then variability or standard deviation acceptance. E indicates acceptance sample error, and Q indicates 1 minus P. P is given variability or standard deviation, and is the sample size. This is one example which I have given. Due to the paucity of time, I am running fast. Another formula you can adopt is Slovin's formula, that is which is given here. You can find out through Google also. This is the formula through which you can calculate the sample size. I am not discussing it, how large should be the sample. This is important, which I want to carry out. That is, what are the techniques that we can adopt in while doing the sampling. I have given here two types of the sampling, which I discussed earlier also. One is the non-probability sampling technique. Another is probabilistic sampling technique. In non-probability means where probability is not there, we can have the convenience sampling, judgment sampling, quota sampling, or snowball sampling. And in the case of probability sampling, it may be the simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling, or other sampling technique if you come across, if you uh, have any other that we may adopt. Here first is the random sampling. We generally write random sampling frequently while doing the research. It is not like that. In that case, if you see the definition, it ensures that each element in the population will have an equal chance of being included in the population. Here, selecting one subject does not affect selecting independently every other element. Here we can use, I have given here, you can use you may use the random numbers table is there, lottery system, fishbowl system. Means there should be certain yardstick. On that basis, if you take the sample, that is the simple random sampling. Then you have systematic sampling. Systematic sampling means that is the formula which is given, means how much population size is there and what should be the sample size. On that basis, you can come across the sample size which is to be taken. Say for example, if you have decided that I have to collect 20 sample. I have given one example so that you can understand. Here, the sample element, if you are having 10,000 sampled population, 50 is the sample size. In that case, 200 should be the gate. So you can take 245 is the first item. You can take 245, 445, 645, like that. Then we come across the stratified sampling. In that means you create the strata. Strata, as I have given it, due to the paucity of time, I am coming on the example. You have taken all the student. Now in that student, you categorize two strata. One is commuters, another is resident. And out of that commuters or resident, means you can take the sample which is homogeneous in nature from commuters and resident. This is called stratified sampling. Then we have cluster sampling. Here we make the clusters, and on that basis, from that cluster, we take the sample. I am giving the examples. Here you see, if I want to collect, I want 20 members to be selected. In that case, what I have done, I have divided all the population in five clusters, and from that clusters, I have taken one cluster, that is, say for example, in this case, fourth cluster I am taking, then fifth respondent, 30th respondent, 49th respondent, no, ninth respondent, 32, 54, 75, 94, 20, 58, like that. In the fourth cluster, here you can take the sample, 20 sample from that. Here again there is two stage cluster sampling. In that case you can take 555 or maybe 444 from each clusters. That is also possible. It is called as multi-stage cluster sampling. I am not going in detail. Here are some examples I have given. Now I am coming on the non-probabilistic sampling. Non-probabilistic sampling is first one is, I will take 5 minutes more. Is it okay, ma'am?
Sir, you have the half an hour, sir.
Half
It
an
will.
hour?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, fine. No problem. I'm seeing that 3 o'clock is already there, so time
No, no,
is
sir. 2:30 to 3:30, sir.
okay, okay. In the convenience sampling that what you do, we generally 90% of the researches that is based on convenience sampling. Most of the people in social science and humanities, I'm talking about every cases you can find the convenience sampling. In the convenience sampling, my suggestion is that if it is very large population where you are means you are not certain that which respondent, which sample unit, which sample element you have to take. In that case it would be better where you cannot categorize, there are heterogeneous people. In that case this non-probabilistic sampling, the convenience sampling is appropriate. Here I have defined it. This is very popular method, and as I said you earlier, always the people, if I have to collect some data from the bank officials of all India means I have decided that certain states are to be included. In that case, if you go there, it is not possible that you can select on the basis of the probabilistic sampling. There you apply the convenience sampling. Convenience sampling that attempts to obtain a sample of convenient elements. As I said, sample element basically. Often respondents are selected because they happen to be in the right place at the right time. As I said you earlier, right place and right uh, time, place and time. If you want to collect the data in that base, because if you have the paucity of time, then you do not have much time, much much effort to be put in that particular time domain. Their convenience sampling is very appropriate. Here I have given something that when it would be very appropriate when there is students. If you want to have the survey on the student, how many students are adopting or buying the particular mobile set. In that case, what you have to do, you cannot categorize all the student in the probabilistic sampling. You have to, if you are doing the research on the college student, what you have to do, you have to stand means at the gate of the particular college, and then whatever the students are coming, you are giving the questionnaire so that they can, as per your convenience, so that they can fill it in. This is useful for that purpose. Here again, for the member of the social organization, if you have mal intercept interviews are to be you want to conduct in that case without qualifying the respondent, then also the convenient sampling is important. Departmental stores are there, using charge account list, people on the street interview if you want to conduct. That is why we may call it chunk sampling. Chunk sampling is meaning thereby convenience sampling. Then we have judgment sampling. Means no doubt in the case of judgment sampling, The respondent is chosen on the basis of the judgment. Judgment meaning thereby he those students who stood first in the class, the sample of that particular student should be maybe 20, and those uh, second class maybe 20, third division or pass 30. Means that there you applied your judgment. Means it may be anything, means where judgment is applied, then you take the randomly I mean to say any student, then on the basis of the convenience, on the basis of the random table, then you involve the probabilistic sampling in the form of random, in the form of systematic. Means judgmental sampling may involve both the things if you want to do that. But first thing, it is a non-probabilistic. Why I am saying this? Because the reason being is that here you involve your judgment that, say for example, if you want to see how many persons like the Toyota product, in that case you decide that I should go for the professionals. This much of professional should be included. This much of academicians should be included. Here you applied your judgment. The moment you apply your judgment, then it becomes judgment sampling. Later on, you can have any probabilistic sampling or maybe the convenience sampling. It is on your choice. Here some examples are given. Then we have quota sampling. Third category of the non-probabilistic sampling is the quota sampling. That is, sometime quota sampling may be viewed as two-stage restricted judgment sampling. Here we decide the quota. Judgment is on the basis of the quality, on the basis of the qualification, on the basis some adjective. I mean to say some adjective. Here in the quota sampling, what you do, you decide on the basis of the particular category. Maybe category may be anything. Category may be quota means how many people have been literated in rural or urban area. Rural and urban you made two category, two quota. Maybe SC, ST, OBC. How many persons have got the professional qualification? Here you decided the quota. In the what I have mentioned here, the first stage consists of developing control category or quota of population element. This population element is total population element is there. In the sample population, what you have done, you have decided the quota. This quota, this from this quota, this much of person is to be taken as a sample element. This particular quota, this much of sample element is to be taken. That you decide. In the second stage, sample elements are selected based on convenience or judgment or maybe any other method. I have mentioned here too. You may take on the basis of random as well, no problem. But the basic purpose it serves that how much in a particular category which you are going to study means in that particular purpose is being sold for which you are conducting a particular survey. Quota sampling is used quite often to ensure that enough data is collected from certain type of or categories of the respondents. Quota sampling attempts to ensure that the proportion of the sample element possessing a certain characteristics is approximately the same as the proportion element with the characteristics in the population. I mean to say, whenever the quota sampling is applied, always the sample which is to be taken from in the quota sampling, but whatever the method you are taking in the second stage, that should be like that, which represent the whole particular quota. Quota sampling is a non-probabilistic sampling method, as I said you earlier. Quota sampling is sometimes confused with stratified random sampling, as I said you earlier, is the probabilistic sampling. that in the stratified sampling from the all populations, what are the heterogeneous group, homogeneous group of a particular category you divided in that. In my case, which I have shown in the slides, you have decided that these are the residents, these are the commuters, whatever it is, and from there you have taken the sample, which is homogeneous in nature. So here in the quota sampling, somewhat the people are being confused, because here again you are dividing in the quotas, but quota, the purpose is different. So it is quota sampling, in that you can adopt the convenience sampling as well. As I said you earlier, judgment sampling, uh, as I have mentioned there. Here I have given one example. A marketing researcher may wish to complete 50 surveys, each with owners of 5 different kinds of cameras. Maybe different cameras are there. In that 50 survey he want to conduct. Here you have given certain names, and in that he is finding the respondent and collecting the data. This is quota sampling. Select a representative sample of intermediate and undergraduate student. I have given it in the form of this particular category, how quota sampling is to be done. Say for example, this is the sampling plan under the quota sample. What I have done, I have to take the students, 100 student I have to take from the sample. What I have done, according to the sample size, not sample size, sample population. What I have did, 32 intermediates are taken, and from there, seeing the sample population, I have taken 22 males, 10 females, and 28 students from first year I have taken, that is 20 male, 8 females, and 20 also taken from the second year, that is 14 males, 6 females, and 20 from the final year, that is 14 males and 6 females. Here you see, you can very easily understand the quota sampling by seeing this particular slide, how the quota sampling is being exercised. Means quota sampling is basically having the different purposes, then you apply this one. Means all the categories are being surveyed. In that case, you can decide the particular category and you can choose the quota sampling. Fourth, very important is snowball sampling. Snowball sampling, that is sometime a market researcher wants to obtain information from respondents who are hard to identify and rate. Here I want to contribute one more thing, is that there are some researches where we have very little literatures available. In that case, what you do, you are finding some difficulty in tracing out the objectives. In that case, what you do, you on the basis of the review of literature, you have undergone, from there you choose some questions, and in that questions, on the basis of the question, you develop objectives and hypotheses. Here, snowball sampling is like that. Here, if you do not know about the population, because very less researches are there, in that case, what you do, you first you have to identify one particular person, one particular respondent, that he is fulfilling my particular objectives. Then, after tracing out one particular respondent, what you do, you ask him, who else are there in this particular field, who is doing this particular business, or this particular respondent which I can trace it out. In that case, on the basis of the information given by your first respondent, you approach to the second respondent. This is called snowball sampling. It continues like that. Then the second respondent will give you some information about the third respondent, and in that way, you can fulfill your questionnaire or whatever the data source which you are exercising in the market to collect the data. As you see the slides also, Additional respondents are obtained from the information provided by the initial respondent. The major drawback of this one is that inclusion in the study is heavily dependent on who knows who. Means we are getting the information from the respondent. So who just means the person to whom he is knowing, he will give the address to that respondent. He will tell, and it is your means you are bound to go to that particular person in order to collect the data. So this is basically the sampling techniques. I hurried up in somewhere in the probabilistic technique, but you generally study these techniques. Here, how to apply these techniques, it is very important. In my slides, I just taken this into account, when to use which particular sampling technique as per your the objective which you have laid down. That is my basic focus of showing all these examples and the particular slides and the method which I have chosen for a particular research. Now you see here, you often confuse with the probabilistic sampling and the non-probabilistic sampling. Some glimpses are there which I am sharing with you. That is, the if the nature of the research is exploratory. Exploratory meaning thereby where you have to ask, you want to have the inductive research, generalized research, not the deductive research. Inductive research is on meaning thereby where you want to ask the questions from the persons, and then you make the inductive research, that is generalization, inferences. So that in that case, non-probabilistic sampling, I think, would be appropriate. Conclusive sampling is important in the case where you want to deductive research. Deductive where you want to develop the theory building research, or like in management, you may come across the Hawthorne experiment. Done by the Elton Mayo in 1928 to 30s. So that was the descriptive where he proved that human relation approach is very important for enhancing the productivity. Here it is a conclusive research, descriptive research. In that case, the probabilistic sampling is appropriate, good one. This is my view. Then relative magnitude of sampling and non-sampling error. As you see, in the case of non-probability sampling, you approach, as there are the techniques which I discussed. Means anybody maybe where your biasness is involved. So non-sampling error are very large, and in the case of probabilistic sampling, the sampling errors means the some element which is very important likely to be loose, but you are under the foundation of certain criteria on the basis of the probabilistic sampling. So sampling error may be there. In the variability in the population, if I say, if homogeneous population is there, then means low variability is there. In that case, non-probabilistic sampling would be appropriate, and heterogeneous population is there, my advice is to go for the probability sampling. Next is statistical consideration. Means if you see the statistically, we use the research tool. In that case, the non the result based on the non-probabilistic sampling, that is means you apply certain research data, but it is not very favorable. But in the case of probabilistic sampling, which belongs to the theory building, conclusive in nature, then it is very favorable. If I see the statistical data, statistical tools which actually apply. In the operational consideration, if I take it, then no doubt in present scenario it is very favorable, but for taking the random table and all these, it is unfavorable from my point of view. So these are something which I wanted to discuss with you. If 10 minutes are left, if you have any questions, then you can ask. Any question?
Participants, if you have any query, ask the question.
Good afternoon.
No, ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Then I think that you all have got all the ways that deliberations which I have done here. No question. Any previous slide which you want to discuss?
Sir, I have one question.
Yes, let me ask.
सर जब मैं पीएचडी रिसर्च मैं कर रही थी, मेरा एक्सपेरिमेंटल रिसर्च था एंड
From science.
नो सर, आई मीन पीएचडी मेरा एजुकेशन में है. मेरा जो टीचिंग स्ट्रेटजीज था सर, उनको लेकर मेरा एक्सपेरिमेंटल था. तो मेरा नॉन प्रोबेबल सैम्पलिंग जब हुआ, उसका डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन देखा गया, तो ये मेरा नॉन प्रोबेबल था. तो मैं जानना चाहूंगी कि ये डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ द डाटा ये कैसे करा जाता है सर, आइडेंटिफाई कि प्रोबेबल है और नॉन प्रोबेबल.
You are talking about the sampling side or something else?
सर मेरा जो डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ डाटा जब मुझे बताया गया कि आपके प्रोबेबल नॉन प्रोबेबल है आपकी जो
नहीं, what are the basis that they said that it is non probable? कैसे पता चला कि non probable?
ये सेम क्वेश्चन मेरी जो गाइड हैं उन्होंने किसी से एनालिसिस करवाया था, तब पता चला कि तो मैं यही जानना चाह रही थी कि कैसे हम इसको करेंगे कि ये नॉन प्रोबेबल है. मुझे
नॉन प्रोबेबल, अगर कोई डेटा जिसके ऊपर नॉन प्रोबेबिलिस्टिक सैम्पलिंग टेक्निक अगर आपको यूज करनी है, तो पहली चीज़ तो ये है कि व्हेन देयर आर नो पर्टिकुलर प्रोबेबिलिटी इवेंट्स आर देयर. कहने का मतलब कि यू कैन नॉट अप्लाई द क्लस्टर सैम्पलिंग और स्ट्रेटिफाइड सैम्पलिंग, रैंडम सैम्पलिंग और मे बी द अदर सैम्पलिंग विच आई हैव डिस्कस्ड. ये आपको पता तब चलता है कि इनके पीछे किसी न किसी तरह का लॉजिक है. जो भी मैंने 4 प्रोबेबिलिस्टिक सैम्पलिंग की टेक्निक बताई, आप खुद ही कह रहे हैं कि नॉन प्रोबेबिलिस्टिक मे बी द डेटा साइज, द सैम्पल्ड पॉपुलेशन वो बहुत ज़्यादा होगा, तब वो कह रहे होंगे भाई कन्वीनियंस सैम्पलिंग इज अप्रोप्रिएट. या फिर वो ऐसे कह रहे होंगे कि कन्वीनियंस सैम्पलिंग मीन्स की हेट्रोजीनिटी ऑफ द पॉपुलेशन इज ग्रेट. एक्सपेरिमेंटल एज यू आर सेइंग, एक्सपेरिमेंटल में हम क्या करते हैं कि एक तो होता है नेचुरल एनवायरनमेंट, एक होता है कंट्रोल्ड एनवायरनमेंट. Experimental research will involve both the environment. One you should keep in the controlled environment and one in the natural environment. Then you make the comparison of that. What is the topic of your research? Then I can tell you why it has been said to you. क्या रिसर्च का क्या टॉपिक था?
the effectiveness of concept mapping strategy and peer group discussion strategy on students learning outcomes. टू स्ट्रेटजीज का इफेक्टिवनेस थी सर स्टूडेंट्स के लर्निंग आउटकम्स पर.
फिर आपने टू स्टूडेंट की कैटेगरी कैसी थी?
8th क्लास हम लोगों ने वो लिया था सर, 8th क्लास एंड अजमेर डिस्ट्रिक्ट के अंदर जो मैंने जो स्कूल लिए थे उसमें 8th क्लास में मैंने स्टूडेंट्स जो सेलेक्ट करे, तो
साइज
टोटल
क्या था? सैंपल साइज, सैंपल
ओनली 60 सर. इट्स वेरी
गलत है.
या
60 में यू कुड हैव टेकन, अगर मान लो आपको नॉन प्रोबेबिलिस्टिक ही लेनी थी तो you could have taken 60, तो you can count it ना, 60 तो you can count it. Better if you could have taken probabilistic sampling, some
Hmm.
probabilistic sampling in your case. If you
Very
are,
less, sir. Very less sample size, sir. According to me.
pardon,
हाँ नहीं सॉरी दीपक डॉक्टर दीपक कुछ कह रहे हैं.
According according to topic, very less sample size, sir.
I'm not getting it.
डॉक्टर दीपक कह रहे हैं कि अकॉर्डिंग टू माय टॉपिक ये सैंपल साइज बहुत लेस है. And-
हाँ बिल्कुल सही है,
हाँ
बहुत लो. कन्वीनियंस सैम्पलिंग में जब बहुत ज़्यादा अगर मान लो पॉपुलेशन होती है, तो एक आप देखना बहुत सारी रिसर्च है, आई एम रिकॉलिंग द नेम ऑफ दैट, मिनिमम सैंपल साइज शुड बी 384.
No, sorry, sir, but my sorry, research is experimental. So, मेरे जो गाइड हैं उन्होंने कहा कि एक्सपेरिमेंटल में बहुत ज़्यादा सैंपल साइज जो होता है वो बड़ा नहीं होता है.
कन्वीनियंस नहीं हो सकता.
हम्म.
फिर वो आप जो कह रहे हैं ना कन्वीनियंस सैम्पलिंग, वो नहीं हो सकता.
ओके.
Experimental research था, you could have taken the another probabilistic sampling that could be approved.
ओके. ओके सर. ओके.
Any other question?
एनी अदर क्वेश्चन प्लीज.
No, sir. Thank you, sir. Very, very thorough session, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank
On
you.
the behalf of organizing committee, the Central Academy Teachers Training College, and the Department of Management Studies of MDS University, मैं आपको बहुत बहुत थैंक यू कहती हूँ. देना भी चाहूँगी सर. आपका जब मैंने पूरा प्रोफाइल देखा सर, आप इतना सारा आपके ऊपर कार्यभार है, उसके बावजूद भी आपने समय दिया और इतने अच्छे से पूरी सैम्पलिंग को समझाया. थैंक यू सो मच सर.
Thank you.
जी.
Very